There's been a tremendous push among state agencies to modernize government services over the past couple of years, but IT leaders are also needing to prepare for the continuing rollout of emerging technology developments. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and joining us to talk about that today is Jennifer Walcott, principal of Deloitte Consulting LLP. She's responsible for offerings and solutions in the government and public services industry. Jennifer, thank you so much for being with us today.
Wyatt, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
So, Jennifer, I understand that your organization has just released a really interesting new report, GovTech Trends 2023, talking about emerging technologies. Can you talk a little bit about that report and some of the highlights that our audience might want to look at?
Absolutely. And it is a really interesting report. I'll give you quick highlights and we can hopefully talk in a little bit more detail about some of these. But a couple of things that really jumped out at us as trends as we looked across the industry. So one, I would say the continuing feature of trust in the public sector. And that takes the form, I would say, of both cybersecurity as well as sort of trust in overall government. And that's a theme that you'll see throughout the report. We also talk a lot about emerging technologies. And so think about things like AI, the metaverse, the continued feature of what that means to the public sector, and how CIOs and other business leaders could start thinking about that as that they look towards the future for themselves. And then workforce. And I think, again, we've had a lot with COVID and sort of the transition to hybrid and virtual. But again, the need for talented workplace professionals that understand security, that understand information technology, and are really interested in being dedicated to the public sector mission continues to be a challenge overall for our CIO community.
Well, and I'm curious, the National Association of State CIOs just released their top 10 technology priorities for 2023. How do you see the trends that you all are looking at sort of dovetailing with their projections?
Absolutely. And I think, again, you'll see a lot of connectivity there, in part because so much of what we are studying and observing, we obviously hear from our client base, right? And so a lot of the trends that you'll see on that top 10 list from NASCIO include things like digital transformation, cyber is on there, workforce is on there. There are a lot of shared priorities, despite some of the very significant differences in size and scale that you would find across the states, which I thought was really interesting to see as well, the connectivity and shared priority set there.
Well, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, on in reality, these emerging trends are kind of converging all at once. So what should CIOs be thinking about to try to really integrate or, look at these trends and their intersection with their organizations and try to really prioritize how they proceed with their investment strategies in the coming year or two?
Oh, it's such a great question because, as you said, there is so much to do, right? And there are so many priorities, and the pace of technology just continues to be, significant. And trying to adapt to that and have the agility to manage all of it can be intense. So a couple of things I would say. One is there is this feature of all of these trends kind of connecting with each other. So the common sort of philosophy of simplicity, and how do I get to a place that brings simplicity to a world of high complexity? And so you'll see in our report, for example, we talk about multi-cloud as one dimension of that. There are a lot of organizations that are not operating on just one cloud, not purely operating on legacy or mainframe. They have all of that in their mix. And so what is the tool set to bring simplicity to that, where you see a lot of intersectionality? And the second one I would say is to start to think about these issues not as sort of single dimension issues, but as you were saying initially, like a shared frame. So as you talk about cyber and trust and cloud, there's intersectionality among a solution set that could bring some simplicity to those things. And so the more that our community can start to think about shared priorities and working with business leaders that are not just in the CIO shop or sort of in the IT space, but really working across the whole of state, there is some benefit to trying to think about solution sets that can solve more than one problem, if you will, with some shared priorities.
Well, I'd like to also explore a little bit about security. Obviously, security has been at the top of the list for NASCIO for a number of years, and it continues to be a very prevalent concern. As you mentioned, agencies need to be thinking about simplifying at one level, But as we move to multi-cloud and multiple distributed environments, that gets more complicated. So what recommendations come from your report, or have you experienced that would advise CIOs about how to really look at look at security in that context?
Yeah, it's a number one issue, right? And as you mentioned, you'll see it in our report as well as from the NASCIO sort of CIO priority list, right at the top in terms of what cyber is. And again, cyber is a broad range of things. And I think that's the first thing to think about is as you start to look at your cyber strategy, if you look at cyber strategy sort of by individual level, by application, or by, one cloud over another, it's really hard to get to a comprehensive solution. And so part of what we're advocating for is looking at the ecosystem as a whole and determining, as you think about that ecosystem as a set of moving parts and pieces, what is the best way to put a cyber strategy around all of it. And one of the things you could do, there are tools out there that allow you to do integrations in a different way, that allow you some visibility across a number of different types of solutions, whether it's cloud or mainframe. But getting that visibility and transparency over the whole ecosystem is a really important feature of how to think about this, and securing the data and securing the citizen experience in a way that's really important to the public good.
And lastly, Jennifer, and talking about the public good, talk to me a little bit about a word you used, which was trust, and the whole issue of kind of equity with consumers in this very distributed digital world today. How can agencies really maintain and or build trust with today's public in light of just how diverse their technologies are, and just the challenges that agencies still have of trying to be equitable to all of their constituents?
That's a great question. I think at the heart of so much of what we're asking of the CI community is grounded in equity. The mission that we are all supporting is to get things out to the citizens, right? To be of service to our citizens and to our stakeholder community. And so figuring out ways in which we can use technology to achieve that outcome is really important. What is the digital tool set that allows us to continue to advocate for trust in the public, continues to advocate for trust in government at the heart of it, so that people will trust they can get the services they need and get the support they need to be, their highest and best use selves. I think the other part of it is actually around workforce. And so you think about the role of the massive growth that we're seeing in the need for cyber professionals, as an example, in the public. The way in which the public and CIOs choose to hire can advance our notions of equity, right? The ability to continue to recruit and to train talent from a broad base of citizens, I think, is a really important feature of how CIOs also can advance the role of equity and of diversity in our government overall.
Some great thoughts on that. Well, Jennifer Walcott, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to join us and sharing some of the findings from the new GovTech Trends 2023 report. We'll be sure to include a link to that report in our show notes, and just sharing your additional perspectives on modernizing in state and local government agencies.
Thank you so much for having me, Wyatt. It was a pleasure.